And here now for more is best-selling author Joel Rosenberg. Joel, great to have you. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you. Great to be back with you guys.
You know, on the topic of Iran, we've seen growing tension between Iran and the United States.
Sure.
And if Iran continues down this path of enriching uranium, ignoring sanctions, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I've written a few novels about it because we don't really know. And so you have to sort of project out a few different scenarios. It certainly looks right now like Iran is trying to bait us into military action, which you'd ask, why would they do that? Because they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. The reason is because they would think that they are going to take, that the United States would take limited action, and that whatever damage we did would help galvanize Iranian public opinion back towards the regime. I don't know if they're right about that, but I actually have to give President Trump credit for not taking military action recently. The sanctions are working, and by not taking military action yet, we're justified in doing it, we may have to, but by not doing it, we're actually starting to pull Europeans and other leaders who have been, who think America is on a hair trigger to use military action at any moment, right? And for Trump, of all people, at least from their perspective, to show some restraint, that caught them off guard, and it helped strengthen the case that we need to intensify these sanctions rather than let up.
You're here and you spoke at the State Department's ministerial conference. One of the topics discussed was how one of the keys for international religious freedom isn't just the ability to choose your own faith, but to change your faith. Right. Earlier in the program, we just saw Chris Mitchell's report on Christianity in Iran. What's your impression about the growth of the church in the Middle East?
Well, the church is growing, but the church has been under severe attack over the last many years. And in fact, even just a few years ago, what did we see? We saw jihadists beheading Christians in Libya, burning down churches in Egypt, waging genocide, actual outright genocide against Christians in Iraq and in Syria, and vowing to eradicate, annihilate Christianity in the birthplace of Christianity. So that was at its lowest and its worst. We're off of those lows. We're in a situation where the church is not only growing spiritually and numerically, but Arab Muslim governments are actually saying we need to work together with Christians to strengthen them, to support them. They're part of our countries, and we want to help them. Egypt has rebuilt every single church that was burnt down at government expense. And as Chris Mitchell was there with me, and he reported, Egypt built the largest church in the Middle East, and the Muslim president gave it to the Christians on Christmas Eve. But I'm also, as you know, meeting with Saudi leaders at the highest levels, UAE leaders, Jordan. We're going to Bahrain this fall for the first time. They just invited us as a group of evangelicals. What's happening? Something positive is happening. Now, I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture. There are very serious difficulties for Christians and all religious minorities in the Arab Muslim world, but we're seeing signs of progress, and when we do, those should be called out and encouraged, even as we encourage these leaders to do more to help Christians.
Well, one of the last times you were here, we talked about the Israeli elections with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, and we're back.
And we're back again, just a couple months later.
The gift that keeps on giving, right.
What's the situation now that he's up for re-election in a couple of months? Where do you think stand now?
Well, as we tape this, I mean, my goodness, you would hardly know there's an election going on in Israel. Nobody's campaigning. It's very low-key at the moment, in part because everybody has just already heard months worth of the campaign argument. So this will heat up as we get into September, and that's the end of September is when the election will be. But at the moment, the polls don't indicate much change, so it's not clear. It's not clear if another election is really going to change the outcome and whether Netanyahu can put together a coalition. What is changing is all the people that don't want Netanyahu to be prime minister have more time to figure out how to work together and unify. I'm not saying it's happening yet, but that's the dynamic that's at play.
Well, we have up until September to wait and see how that all plays out.
Yes. Unless we do it all again a few months after that. I hope not.
We'll see. Yeah, Joel Rosenberg, it's always so great to see you.
Thank you. Great to be with you guys. I appreciate it.